In 1990, the Async Institute sends researcher Naren into a mysterious, multi-dimensional place known as the Backrooms. Naren records everything as he explores these rooms, finding nothing but yellow walls and floors over and over. Eventually, he notices some cables and follows them until he sees a tripod and some boxes. The room behind them has all sorts of equipment, and Naren pushes some boxes to block the entrance. Then he uses the radio to try to contact headquarters, explaining that this is the furthest he's been, but he's lost his teammates. He also says that there's something else here, so he wants to be rescued. Suddenly, he hears a weird noise and sees a bird crashing into a wall. When he tries to check on it, the bird flies away. Afterward, Naren keeps exploring and finds more objects instead of empty rooms. Many of them are unfinished or stuck to the walls. At that moment, he hears a door opening and turns around to discover a terrifying monster coming for him. He starts running as fast as possible and enters a room decorated like an island. But when he tries to open the door, he can't. The creature soon finds him and knocks him down. Later, the Async scientists watch the footage of the incident. Music weeks later, therapist Mary is devastated to watch her childhood home being demolished. The handprints on music, the cement path, remind her of the day she and her mother put them there. Meanwhile, Clark starts the day at his furniture store, but the business isn't doing well. After work, he has a therapy session with Mary and wonders if he deserves to be alone. To help him open up, Mary does a role-play exercise with him and plays his wife, who kicked him out of the house after another argument about his alcoholism. His wife had also been frustrated because he was always at the store. But Clark grew resentful because he had to pay for everything while she took a break from college. When Mary brings music up Clark's failed career as an architect, he snaps and yells at her. Mary ends the exercise and explains his reaction is normal. This test is to help him identify those feelings to learn to work on them. Sometime later, Clark dresses as a pirate to film a commercial for the store, promoting very big sales. Unfortunately, when he sits on a chair, its leg breaks and he falls. His assistant manager Kat and her boyfriend Bobby want to do another take, but Clark refuses for now. In the afternoon, Clark brings an electrician to the store to check on some power issues. The building has had flickering lights and outages for months, yet the bill remains strangely high. When the electrician checks the fuse box in the basement, they discover 3 strange red switches that Clark swears weren't there before. They press them a few times, but nothing happens. That night, Mary watches TV at home and has to endure the ad for her own therapy tapes. She also keeps glancing at the cement handprint she took from the house. Music at the same time. Clark is drinking and watching TV in the store, where he's been living since his wife kicked him out. Suddenly, the TV shuts off, so Clark inspects it, but he can't find music that calls. Then the store lights turn on by themselves and flicker for a few seconds before they turn off. Lonely and frustrated, Clark goes for a drive while listening to Mary's tapes. He goes to his old house just to stare at it. Sometime later, Mary hosts a party for her family, but she still hasn't processed the death of her mother, and soon she starts feeling very anxious. She rushes to her office and takes some medicine that she keeps hidden in a cabinet. The following night, Clark watches TV again while drinking and is annoyed by a commercial from the competition. Suddenly, the screen glitches and shows him the backrooms for a second before it turns off. While Clark hits the TV with frustration, he notices the lights in the basement turning on. He immediately goes downstairs and shuts off every switch, but nothing happens until he reaches the mysterious red ones, which shut off the power in the entire building. When he presses them again, the power doesn't return. Clark is ready to leave the basement, but he freezes when he notices a glowing line on the wall. As he starts to move closer, it disappears. When he touches the wall, his whole body goes through and collapses on a yellow floor. Now in the backrooms, a confused Clark stares at a pile of furniture. He then touches the wall again and ends up walking through, which throws him back into the basement. Curious, Clark crosses the wall again to return to the backrooms. He touches the furniture and realizes they are the things from his store. Then he starts exploring, only seeing empty rooms until he finds a stop sign written with mirrored letters. To avoid he takes a different hallway and notices the bird from the beginning dead on the floor. As the exploration continues, Clark finds a bunch of chairs and hears a strange voice speaking multiple languages. He follows the noise until he discovers that it comes from a cutout with a recorder. Following the cables on its back takes Clark to a door, but he can't open it. On his way out, he notices something sticking out of the wall and realizes it's a panel, so he pulls it off. Inside, he finds a bag containing music tapes, discs, and Naren's ID. There's also a tunnel, so Clark crawls through it until he reaches a room where things are sinking into the floor. In a hole, there's a bunch of chairs. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise, so he looks through the tunnel at the previous room and asks if there's anyone there. The tape stops playing, and the cutout is thrown into the room in pieces. Getting scared, Clark walks away from the hole and approaches a small door on top of a slope. It has 3 knobs, and Clark has to try them all to open it. The frame is barely big enough for Clark to cross it, and he closes the door when he reaches the next room, feeling like something is following him. Here, he finds the stop sign again, so he's able to retrace his steps back to the pile of furniture. When he touches the wall, he can't find the exit and panics, but thankfully, after lots of testing, he finally manages manages to cross through. After a few seconds, he comes back to the backrooms and grabs a stool to take with him to the real world as proof that this really happened. Meanwhile, a sync researcher's Phil watches the footage of Clark's adventure. During his next therapy session, Clark tells Mary that he hasn't drunk in 3 days and desperately shares what happened, even showing her a map he drew of the backrooms. Mary doesn't believe him and thinks it's a side effect of withdrawal. So Clark takes back the map and swears to prove his story. Afterward, Clark visits Kat and Bobby, saying he needs help with a project and even agreeing to pay them. The next day, Clark takes the duo to the basement and makes Bobby film everything. After putting some supplies in a bag and marking the spot on the wall, he quickly goes through it, leaving the others in shock. They can hear Clark's voice on the other side asking them to cross too, but Kat refuses music because she thinks it's dangerous. Bobby is curious, so he follows Clark and gets so excited at the sight of the backrooms that he convinces Kat to come too. They start exploring the area, and Bobby makes sure to put every room on camera. When they find a dark tunnel, Clark ties Bobby to a bed before sending him down. The tunnel gets narrower as he moves, so Bobby starts crawling to reach the room at the end. There are piles of laundry everywhere and a really nasty smell. In the neighboring room, Bobby notices flickering lights. He wants to check the place out, but the rope isn't long enough for him to reach it. Suddenly, a terrifying creature appears in that other room, and Bobby immediately starts climbing up the tunnel, telling his friends to pull him up. When he reunites with them, he tells them what he saw, but is interrupted by the rope trying to pull him back into the tunnel. Kat catches Bobby and Clark tries to untie the knot. However, the rope keeps pulling with impressive strength, and Bobby is soon dragged down the tunnel. Clark and Kat hear monstrous sounds, and Bobby screaming down there before the rope pulls again to hit them with the bed. It drags them down the tunnel with the camera, and they watch in horror as Bobby disappears behind a hatch, leaving a trail of blood on the floor. Kat immediately runs into the dark room to look for her boyfriend, and Clark hears her scream before the hatch opens again. The creature seems to be coming back. So Clark escapes by going through a hole in the wall, still carrying a camera. He moves through a lot of trash until he finds a new hole, which he uses to come out into a new area that is white instead of yellow. Hearing noises behind him, Clark opens a door and finds the yellow room with the laundry piles. He calls for Kat as he walks, noticing another room with lots of chairs, sinking couches, and a crutch. A corridor takes him to a room with children's toys, followed by several empty rooms. Clark opens the first door he sees and rushes through it, only to find a Christmas tree playing music and surrounded by mannequins sinking into the floor. Behind the tree, Clark finds a person on a chair and says hello. This person turns on a lamp and reveals he's missing half his body. Then a deformed woman appears in the room and comes after him. So Clark starts running. As he crosses different areas, he sees more Christmas decorations and the front of a house. When he goes through the door, he ends up in a bathroom. After slipping on some water, Clark keeps moving and finds some pools. At that moment, he hears Kat behind the wall, so he puts the camera down and tries to find a way to help her. Then something enters the room and grabs the camera. A flashback shows Mary's childhood. Her mother was mentally ill, so the house was always dirty and all the windows were covered with newspapers. One day little Mary tried to open the window, but her mother caught her red-handed and scolded her, reminding her to never go outside because it isn't safe. When the door suddenly was blown up, adult Mary wakes up from this dream. She stares at the cement handprint before she hears her phone ring, but she lets the answering machine take it. Clark leaves a message saying he's never coming back. Meanwhile, Phil watches TV with his family when the ad break plays Clark's pirate commercial. Phil is in shock because he immediately recognizes him. Moments later, Mary arrives at the store, which is empty. There are many envelopes under the door, suggesting nobody has been here for days. She goes inside and calls for Clark to no avail. When she notices the basement lights flickering, she goes downstairs and finds a board with the map he showed her. She also notices the marks on the wall and is shocked to watch a fly disappear into it. After some hesitation, Mary touches the wall and gathers her bravery to cross it. In the back rooms, Mary doesn't find the furniture, only empty rooms and the stop sign. She starts searching the area, and eventually she discovers some stuff from her childhood home. In the next quarter, there's a pile of chairs and a disturbing drawing on the wall that shows a terrifying monster killing humans. Some notes indicate the artist was trying to figure this place out. At that moment, she hears a noise and turns around to see someone hiding in a passage. Clark tells her that she's being too loud before he shows himself, saying that this is every place that ever was. Their chat is interrupted by a noise and flickering lights, so Clark tells Mary not to worry because it's just him. Suddenly, he wraps his arm around her neck and apologizes as he chokes her, claiming it's for her own good. Another flashback shows little Mary watching her mother being taken away to a mental hospital, which left her alone at home. This memory starts transforming as her house loses objects and details. Little by little becoming just one more area in the backrooms. Then Mary wakes up tied to a chair in a dining room, where Clark is setting up a table while surrounded by three strange-looking people. He says this is a mess, but kind of beautiful. He also explains that everything here is built by the backrooms based on the visitors' memories. The more they rebuild them, the more distorted they become. Clark thinks they are an improvement of the original, well because they can't feel pain, which he proves by stabbing a man. According to Clark, feeling no fear or regrets and only existing like furniture must be amazing. Then he starts pulling pieces of the man's stomach, revealing stuffing instead of flesh. Clark serves the pieces on the plates and says music. This can be eaten before opening the fridge to reveal Kat's head. A desperate Mary begs Clark to let her go, promising to help him with anything he needs. Clark wants her to admit he was right, but first he sets up a scene like in the role-play exercise. When he turns off the lights, the weird guy on the chair turns on his lamp. After taking the knife back from the body, Clark cuts off the woman's whole hair and puts it on Mary as a wig so she can play his wife. Pretending this is the night he was kicked out of the house, Clark apologizes for accidentally waking his wife up. He starts calm and sensible, but soon he loses his mind and starts ranting, saying he has the right to drink all he wants because this is his house and he's paying music for it, just like he paid for his wife's college. Mary yells that she's not his wife and shakes off the wig, ignoring his request to stay in character. She tells him that his wife didn't leave him because of the drinking or the overworking. She left him because he never took responsibility for his actions. He always blames all his problems on someone else, and Mary can't help him with that. After the initial shock, Clark starts crying and admits he doesn't want to change. In fact, he wants to stay here. Mary tells him he can stay if he wants, but he must let her go. Clark unties Mary and apologizes, which causes the creepy women to run to a corner to freak out. At that moment, the creature comes out from the dark room in the form of Captain Clark, the pirate from the commercial. Music, it seems to be a manifestation of Clark's negative emotion, like his rage and failures. The real Clark tells him that Mary is a friend and that she's concluded they don't need to change, but the captain picks him up and bites his shoulder. Then he starts throwing him all over the room to torture him, while the chair guy keeps playing with the lamp. As Clark's screams echo in the area, Mary runs away and enters a room that looks like her old neighborhood. She rushes to the door at the end, but it won't open. At that moment, the captain appears dragging Clark's bleeding body on the floor, so Mary quickly hides inside a house. Running from room to room, Mary can hear Captain Clark coming closer. In an area full of couches, she has to jump on them to keep advancing, but she ends up slipping and injuring her leg. Moving more slowly allows Captain Clark to get closer. Soon Mary reaches a corridor and hops her way to the door, which won't open. As the creature comes closer, Mary crawls through the doggy door and enters a different room to dodge the monster's hand just in time. When Mary looks around, she discovers she's standing on the edge of an atrium and she can see the rest of the back rooms. Since the creature is hitting the door to break it, Mary tries to move fast but also carefully. She manages to crawl up some stairs and opens a door on the ceiling, which comes off and falls into the abyss. Passing through the resulting hole takes Mary to a nice-looking room with the store's furniture. Here she climbs more stairs and reaches an open area that makes her realize this is a flawed copy of the store. She rushes to the exit door, only to find it blocked. At that moment, Captain Clark arrives, so Mary uses a coat rack to break his wooden leg to make him fall. Then she tries to run away but accidentally bumps into the cutout, which activates an alarm and causes of extinguishers to start filling the room with fog. Mary keeps running, but unfortunately she soon collapses because the fog is actually sleeping gas. Something suddenly snaps her awake, and she's terrified to discover Captain Clark crawling on top of her. Mary blocks his face with a hand, while the other pulls out the cement handprint from her pocket. Music, then she uses it to repeatedly hit the monster in the head until it breaks. Afterward, Mary runs into an extremely narrow passage in the wall where Captain Clark can't reach her. She runs to the next door, only to be knocked out with gas by a sink workers in hazmat suits. Mary looks back but doesn't see the monster in the passage before music collapsing. The men drag her out of the room and drop her in front of a group of scientists. Sometime later, Mary's body is scanned. As the men guide her through their facility, she discovers they've retrieved the monster's body too. Behind a door, there are countless copies of the cutout. Eventually, she's left alone with Phil, who asks her lots of questions. Mary confirms she found the rooms in the furniture store, but refuses to say more when Phil shows her a screenshot of the footage with Clark and creature. Then Phil explains that his company used to build MRI machines until they found the backrooms. Now he spends his days researching and creating a map. He wants Mary to share her experience, but she dissociates music to stop listening to him. Different shots of the backroom show all the rooms, including one with Mary's therapy tapes music, and another full of missing posters for Kat and Bobby. Eventually, it's revealed that Mary is actually there, frozen on her chair while her body slowly mutates. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Music, thanks for watching.